spiraled into drinking and shut my wife out, tore up the divorce papers after realizing I needed to change for both of us. Me, a 27-year-old guy, and my wife, who's 31, hit a seriously rough patch and ended up living like strangers in the same house for nearly a year. The blame was mostly on me. After a crushing setback and losing my father, I spiraled hard. I started drinking heavily, let myself go, and shut everyone out, especially her. I neglected her, lashed out emotionally, and eventually she reached a breaking point. When I flat out refused therapy yet again, she went to a lawyer, drafted divorce papers, and gave them to me to sign. I signed them immediately. But she didn't. She kept the signed papers in her room, said she'd wait until I came into my inheritance so I'd have somewhere to go before she filed them. In our country, that's how a no-fault divorce works. For 2 months I slept in my home office, isolated and miserable, but eventually I just had enough. I quit drinking cold turkey. I poured myself into work, started doing more around the house, tried to show some human decency for a change. When she noticed the changes, I played it off, said it wasn't for her, it was for me. She agreed, but I could tell she still cared. Despite wanting me out, she checked in on me, and every now and then she invited me to sleep in our bed instead of my office. Nothing physical happened, but she'd spoon me at night. For a while, that's just how it was. Then last night, everything changed. Over the holidays, we'd grown closer, and I finally admitted the truth. The big brave act I put on about changing for myself was a lie at first. I started getting my act together to prove to her I could be better, but after a while, I realized I honestly wanted to become a better person, not just for her, but for myself too. I wanted to turn over a new leaf, even if it meant just being a decent ex-husband. She listened, then quietly left the room and came back with the divorce papers. She set them on the table between us and simply asked, "What should we do with these, then?" Without thinking, I tore them up right there. She shouted out with pure relief, a massive yes, and threw her arms around me. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Looks like we're not getting divorced after all. Hooray? The truth is, for so long I was suffocating in my own negativity, I couldn't even see how badly I was hurting her. Despite how distant I might sound talking about it now, I was blindsided by what happened, by what I did and by her reaction. We talked a bit before all this, and she'd told me she wasn't in a hurry to file for divorce as long as I showed her respect and kept improving. Deep down, I suspected she wanted to see us reconcile, but she'd already given me so much patience that I didn't want to push my luck. It still feels surreal to be moving back to being husband and wife after more than a year as just awkward roommates. She admitted she only went so far as drafting divorce papers because she couldn't keep letting me hurt her, or myself, any longer, no matter how much she loved me. And I get that. She was right. It's still weird, most nights, falling asleep together again or cuddling. We haven't been intimate since before the separation, but she's made it clear she wants to reconnect that way too. We're taking it slow, at our own pace, no pressure, just giving ourselves time. I realize now how important it is for me to finally open up, and I'm working on that in therapy. I've even told her how odd and kind of fuzzy it feels to be this close again after so long. She just assures me we've got all the time in the world. And she means it, no rush, just us finding our way back. As therapy continues, I've uncovered a tough truth: I might have swapped my drinking for workaholism. So now, with help, I'm finding a healthier balance. I don't want to undo the progress I've made. For the first time in ages, I feel like maybe I've really got a shot at being the husband she deserves. Update 1. After almost a year of living separately at home, my soon-to-be ex-wife unexpectedly voiced a desire to reconcile. That night, with all the weight of her words pressing on me, I tore up the divorce papers in front of her, her face lighting up with a mix of relief and hope I hadn't seen in so long. But it didn't take long for reality to set in. I'd already mapped out an entirely new year, built on the assumption that the divorce would be final. Suddenly, trying to undo all that emotional preparation filled me with a gnawing anxiety and uncertainty I couldn't ignore. She sensed the shift in me right away. Together, we launched into a series of soul-bearing conversations, sometimes laughing, sometimes falling silent, sometimes crying. I'd only seen her cry a handful of times in our entire marriage. She's always been the unshakable, stoic type, but as I watched her break down, sobbing about the pain I'd caused her and how much love she still held, it felt like a dagger through my heart. Hearing her say, out loud, how raw and burning that pain still was humbled me deeply. She poured out everything I'd put her through with my old destructive patterns, confessed that although she was proud I'd made such major changes, she also felt wounded. It seemed, to her, like she was only holding me back, and my willingness to accept the divorce so quickly made her question if she was ever worth the best version of me. She was angry at herself too, admitting she'd considered reconciling months before but kept silent for fear I'd snap back to the man I used to be, or that I simply wouldn't care. During our separation, I'd thrown myself into renovating my father's old place, a big, rambling house, nothing fancy or mansion-like, just solid and full of memories. I'd shared only breadcrumbs about the project with her, half out of habit and half as a way to protect myself from getting too hopeful. When she learned about all the work I was putting in, she seemed surprised in a good way, but also stung that I'd made all these plans without considering her, like she was already some fading relic of my life. Of course, the possibility of an amicable divorce hovered in the background. But there were two questions she needed answers to. Was I seeing someone else? Did I truly stop loving her? The answer to both was an unequivocal no. I told her how much I'd suffered at the thought of losing her, but that I didn't want to become the ex-husband who made empty promises or caused more pain by clinging on. All I could do was try to be a good almost ex, pull my weight, and insist on paying rent for my separate room in the house, which she always refused, even when I pushed. And then it came, the big question: did we both still want this marriage to work? Yes. It wouldn't be easy, that much was certain, but we agreed on taking baby steps. We booked our first couples therapy session for the week. I've been in individual therapy for a while now. She resolved to find her own therapist too. We started going on quiet dates and long walks, even took a short hike together. As a tentative peace offering, I asked if she'd like to help me design the renovation of my father's house, give her input. She lit up at the idea. She's always loved gardening but had to make do with potted plants on our tiny balcony. The house, on the other hand, has a sprawling garden and a wild, overgrown field behind it. She grinned, warned me we'd bust our backs getting it right, but she was ready for it. I couldn't help but hope that working together on something tangible would help her forge our bond. So here we are. The road ahead is steep, but for the first time in a while, I actually feel hopeful. Little has changed since then, honestly. We went to our first couple counseling session. She attended her first individual session as well, and set down some firm boundaries and a plan for our relationship. We've been on more dates, making honest efforts to remember how it feels to truly enjoy each other's company. Still, there's a distance between us. We haven't been intimate. She tried once, but I gently redirected us towards simply holding each other and talking. I find it difficult to sleep beside her now, not because of resentment or discomfort, but because I'm so used to being alone with my thoughts in my own bed that I often end up back in my office, falling asleep there instead. I wake up before her, make breakfast, and try to start the day gently. She appreciates the gesture but quietly mentioned that she noticed when I didn't sleep with her. Is this normal? Does intimacy take time to rebuild? I tell myself it does, but there's a creeping fear that she might take it as a sign that I've given up. I know this won't change overnight. She seems to believe the process should go faster, that I'm being too hard on myself, and on her. But from my vantage point, this was never a storybook conflict, never something that a single event could fix. I've been sober for just over a year, only quitting after she served me those divorce papers. Despite her belief in the possibility of our reconciliation, that shame still clings to me, a sense that she can't ever really see me as more than the drunken, selfish version of myself she had to leave in the first place. The guilt, the memory of being that man, grows suffocating. To add to the ironies of the universe, I work as a civil servant in family services. The province recently promoted me to the cabinet. There's an official photo of me shaking hands with the Prime Minister, which my wife proudly shared on Facebook. She's genuinely proud, I think, yet I fear she's too eager to sweep our past under the rug, to claim our marriage is fixed when we've only just started the repair. Still, I try, I give her my time, cook her favorite meals, surprise her with small gifts. Yet a sense of loneliness persists. I feel adrift, alone in my shame, while she urges me to move forward as though her forgiveness is all it takes. For her, maybe forgiveness flows more easily. For me, I can't yet lay down the burden of what I was, of everything she endured because of me. My therapist says only I can work through that. After all, I caused it. Perhaps, in time, I'll be able to set it down, but right now, I don't know how. So what's next? She had every right to hand me those divorce papers because of my drinking. She never deserved the hurt, never signed up for that man I became. I quit drinking, threw myself into work, started fixing up my father's house, thinking it would be my safe haven when the dust settled. When she saw all these changes and wanted to try again, I agreed without hesitation. Now I see that, subconsciously, I'd shaped my whole life around letting her go, and now, as she tries to find her way back into my plans, I'm struggling to let her all the way in. She's enthusiastic about being part of the renovation project, dreaming of a real garden, but I confess I sometimes regret inviting her in. That space was meant to be my retreat. We talked about it. She was hurt but understanding, telling me some of the blame rests on her shoulders for never letting me know she was reconsidering before now. What should have felt happy and new became an added layer of stress. Both she and my therapist call all of this my depression talking. Maybe they're right, but I can't help but wonder, are we really going to make it? Or have we done too much damage to find our way back? For now, I just keep showing up and hoping that, with time, the answer will become clear. Update 2. Not really an update, just a new turn in our journey. I showed her the last thread I'd written. She started scrolling through it on her phone in silence. She told me she'd already figured out most of what I'd put down, even the parts about the gem and the flowers. Then she surprised me. She said if she'd known how much anguish my heart would churn up from trying to reconcile this soon, she wouldn't have offered the olive branch at all, and now she's regretting it. She thanked everyone for the kind words and appreciation directed at her, but at the same time, she got upset. In her opinion, I painted things out to be worse than they are. Either I exaggerated, or I'd been hiding my true feelings from her all this time, and that's a problem. She said, for example, I'm not as cold as I made myself out to be, and she's not nearly as pushy as I described. In fact, she's been giving me plenty of space. She accused me of some weird self-sabotage, said it feels like I'm maneuvering for her to leave me, but it's not going to happen. If I really want to end things, I'll have to do it myself. She won't push me, but she won't oppose it either. She wasn't angry, just numb. Things aren't easy, but overall they're moving forward, even if slowly, both in therapy and in the daily grind. There are still hurdles when it comes to intimacy, but we edge closer bit by bit. Sometimes, though, the shame and guilt swamp me until I wonder why she's with me at all. Is she staying out of sunk costs? I do my best. I bring her small gifts, plan dates, cook her favorite dishes, take on extra chores, yet it never feels enough. She notices, sometimes, and will gently tell me to ease off. She says I'm trying too hard, and it can come across as artificial. But she does appreciate that these days I'm always smiling, clean-shaven, well-dressed, ever the gentleman. She even jokes sometimes that I look like the president of her home country. Maybe I am overdoing it, but right now, it feels like all I can do. We're both in therapy, but it's early days. For the longest time, I was apathetic about everything, so I push myself to be enthusiastic now. She usually likes it, though one time I tried a dance move for her and she burst into laughter. "What the hell was that?" she asked. I've been sober for over a year now, ever since she served me divorce papers. She decided to try reconciliation last January. Nothing about this has been easy. There are still separate beds, I still don't feel safe enough for sex, and we do tons of therapy, individually and together. Still, despite her reassurances, I can't shake the shame of being a useless, abusive drunk. I work as a civil servant, ironically in family services, and recently got promoted to the cabinet in the provincial government. Funny enough, there's a photo floating around of me shaking hands with the Prime Minister. My wife picked it for Facebook, captioning it with how proud she was. I know she means it, and I'm glad, but I can't help but think she's too quick to sweep the past under the rug. We are far from fixed. I keep feeling that shame whenever I look at her, and sometimes I almost welcome the idea of divorce. But she insists I'm doing the right things now, and if I love her I'll regret letting go. It's just, as much as I try to give her quality time, cook her favorites, get her gifts, I can't help but feel hopeless and, honestly, alone in this. She's ready to move on, but forgiving myself for who I was in her life is so much harder than forgiving her. My therapist tells me only I can work through this. I caused it, after all, and I agree, but I still don't know how. Maybe time will help? After all, a year of sobriety barely scratches the surface. She told me point blank, get a grip on these feelings or I'll end up sabotaging what we've fought so hard to rebuild. Update 3. 2 months later, things are moving lukewarmly well. Divorce is no longer on the table. Despite still sleeping apart and having no intimacy, my hang-up, and something I'm working through in therapy, we're doing okay. The shame lingers, that feeling I will never outrun being an abusive, useless drunk, that she must still remember me at my lowest and the weight of it sometimes crushes my spirit, but every now and then, a bit of normalcy breaks through and I breathe easier. It's almost like we're starting all over, dating, putting in effort, planning little surprises and gifts. She admitted she expected things to heal more quickly, but even she agrees now, after a year apart, life can't just snap back to what it was. She claims I'm too hard on myself. I counter that she's being too forgiving. But all things considered, we're making it work, even with the slow patches. Every now and then I get this sense that we're just delaying the inevitable, or that we're stuck. But that doubt passes, at least most days. Update 4. Progress is steady, not spectacular, but enough to keep hope alive. Still facing issues in the bedroom, but I'm tackling them, determined to be a good husband on all fronts. Last week, I was assigned to work in the capital for the next 2 months, with state housing provided. Unexpectedly, my wife is full of energy over the move, already itching to pack her bags. I hesitated, thinking about all her loved ones and friends here. Her entire support system is local, while I've severed all ties with mine. She insists, though, as a married couple, she has every right to come along, and since she runs an e-commerce business, she can manage it remotely. She also wants us to return home every weekend. I know better than to battle her on this. It's not a fight worth picking. So, together, we'll go. I'm hopeful for our future, cautious but optimistic. Update 5. This really is my final note. I reached a breaking point. I couldn't figure out why the negative thoughts about my wife and me kept returning even though everything seemed to be getting better. Some people voiced the possibility that the issue might be physiological, and that stuck with me. We met with a specialist, ran some tests, and it turned out my blood values were completely off. The doctor speculated a chemical imbalance in my brain and prescribed mood stabilizers, not quite antidepressants, they assured me. Both my wife and I were skeptical, but I committed to it, and what do you know? Overnight, my relentless negativity vanished. I finally feel control over my emotions. Now, I know I love my wife, and believe, for the first time in ages, that things can and will keep getting better. Before, I was just acting the part, but now I genuinely love spending time with her and making her laugh. We've started making love again, no blue pill necessary. Every weekend, we come back from the capital together. We're even turning my dad's old villa into our private retreat and love nest. I apologized to her for my emotional unavailability after she extended me an olive branch. She said she doesn't blame me, now that we understand what was really happening, but I still see it as a failing on my part. I should have asked for help sooner. But now, absolutely honestly, I can say I'm happy and indescribably grateful to my wife for giving me a third chance. I don't want to waste it. Every single day, I want to see her smile and savor every second together. This is it, our fresh start. I doubt I'll ever need to tell this story again. Update 6. I thought I was done with these updates, but life had other plans. 6 months into our fresh start, everything seemed perfect. The mood stabilizers were working, we were happier than we'd been in years, and the villa renovation was coming along beautifully. My wife had thrown herself into designing the garden with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen since our early marriage. We were making love regularly, laughing together, planning our future. I genuinely believed we'd made it through the worst. Then last Tuesday happened. I came home early from the capital. There was a scheduling mix-up with the cabinet meeting, so I caught the 2 p.m. train instead of my usual Friday departure. I wanted to surprise her. The house was quiet when I walked in, which was odd because her car was in the driveway. I called out but got no response. I figured she might be in the garden or maybe taking a nap. I found her in our bedroom, on a video call with her laptop angled away from the door. She was wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for our anniversary last month, the one she said made her feel irresistible. But she wasn't talking to me. "I miss you too," I heard her say, her voice softer than it had been with me in months. "I can't stop thinking about Prague." Prague. She'd gone there for a business conference 3 weeks ago, told me it was boring, full of networking events and vendor meetings. I must have made a noise because she spun around, her face going white. She slammed the laptop shut so fast it made me flinch. "You're home early," she said, clutching the robe closed. Clearly. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. All those months of therapy, all that progress, all that talk about honesty and rebuilding trust, and here we were. "Who was that?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "His name is Marcus. I met him at the conference." The room tilted. "Are you having an affair?" I don't know what to call it. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Nothing physical happened. But I wanted it too." We talked for hours every night after the conference sessions. He made me feel alive, like I was someone worth discovering again, not just someone trying to fix what's broken. I sat down in the chair across from her, my legs suddenly unreliable. "How long?" "Since Prague. We've been talking every day. Video calls when you're in the capital, messages when you're here." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I know how hypocritical this sounds after everything you put me through, but I felt so lonely, even with all our progress. You were trying so hard to be perfect, to be the husband you thought I wanted, that I started missing the man I actually fell in love with." "So you found someone else?" "I found someone who laughs at my terrible jokes without it feeling like an obligation. Someone who doesn't apologize for taking up space in a conversation. Someone who doesn't look at me like I'm made of glass that might shatter if he says the wrong thing." Each word hit like a physical blow. "I was trying to be better. I was trying to show you, I know. And I appreciate it, I really do. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being you. You became this performance. This guilt-ridden man trying to earn forgiveness that I'd already given you." We talked until 3 a.m. She told me about Marcus. He's a consultant from Berlin, divorced, father of 2. She admitted they'd made plans to meet again, that she'd been researching flights to Germany. She said she loved me but wasn't sure if she was still in love with me, or if she was just attached to the idea of us making it work. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. "But when I'm talking to him, I remember what it feels like to be wanted for who I am, not just forgiven for who I was married to. I'm writing this from my father's villa. I drove here after our conversation, needing space to think." She didn't try to stop me. Maybe that says everything. The irony isn't lost on me. I destroyed our marriage with my drinking and selfishness. We fought our way back to something resembling happiness, and now she's the one who's found someone else. Part of me wants to rage, to throw her betrayal in her face. But mostly, I just feel empty. I understand her loneliness. In my effort to be the perfect recovering husband, I'd turned into a stranger. I'd been so focused on not being the man who hurt her that I'd forgotten how to be the man she married. She's been calling and texting, asking if we can talk. I'm not ready yet. I need to figure out if there's anything left worth fighting for, or if we're just two people who've hurt each other too much to find our way back to real love. For now, I'm staying at the villa. The garden she helped design is blooming beautifully. Every flower feels like a reminder of what we almost had. Update 7. It's been 3 weeks since I found out about Marcus. 3 weeks of living at the villa, fielding her calls, and trying to make sense of everything. I thought I'd write one more time because what happened yesterday changed everything again. She stopped calling after the first week. I figured she was giving me space, or maybe she was talking to Marcus more. The silence felt like confirmation that we were done. I threw myself into finishing the villa renovation. Seemed fitting, somehow, that I'd complete the project that was supposed to be our fresh start. Yesterday morning, I was installing the last kitchen cabinet when I heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I saw her getting out of her sedan, but she wasn't alone. A man emerged from the passenger side, tall, sandy-haired, wearing an expensive-looking jacket. My stomach dropped. Marcus. She'd actually brought him here. I met them at the front door, my hands still dusty from the renovation work. Up close, he looked older than I'd imagined, maybe mid-40s, with laugh lines around his eyes and the kind of confident posture that comes from success. He extended his hand. "You must be David," he said in accented English. "I'm Marcus. I think we need to talk." The surreal nature of the moment hit me. Here I was, shaking hands with the man my wife had an emotional affair with, in the house I'd been renovating as our sanctuary. I asked him to come, my wife said quickly. "Before you get angry, just please listen." We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd torn up divorce papers a year ago. Marcus looked around, taking in the renovation work. "This is beautiful," he said genuinely. "Sarah showed me photos, but seeing it in person. You've done incredible work." "Marcus is ending it," my wife said suddenly. "Between us. He's ending it." I looked at him, confused. He nodded slowly. "I flew here to tell you both something. Sarah doesn't know this yet." He glanced at her, then back at me. "I've been divorced for 3 years. My ex-wife had an affair during a very difficult time in our marriage. I was working constantly, trying to provide for the family, but I wasn't present emotionally." "Sound familiar?" My wife's face went pale. "When I met Sarah in Prague, I recognized something in her. The same loneliness my ex-wife had. But I also saw something else. She talked about you constantly. Every conversation somehow circled back to your recovery, your efforts, your progress. Even when she was angry or confused, she defended you." He leaned forward. "I realized I was doing to you what someone did to me. I was the escape, the validation, the emotional outlet that should have been directed at healing your marriage. So I stopped." "Stopped what?" my wife asked, her voice small. "Stopped encouraging this. Stopped being your emotional affair partner. I told you I needed time to think, but really, I was trying to figure out how to end this without destroying you both further." The room fell silent. I could hear the old house settling around us. "There's something else," Marcus continued. "The night before I stopped responding to your calls, Sarah, you told me about the mood stabilizers. About how David's personality had changed overnight, how he'd become this perfect husband who felt artificial. But you also mentioned something else, that underneath all that trying, you could sometimes see glimpses of the man you married. The one who used to make you laugh until your sides hurt." He looked at me. "You're not trying to be perfect anymore, are you? You're just existing. Surviving." He was right. These past 3 weeks, alone in the villa, I'd stopped the performance. I'd been angry, sad, confused, but I'd been real. "I think," Marcus said carefully, "you two need to stop trying to fix your marriage and start discovering if you still like each other. Not the broken version, not the perfect version, but who you actually are now." My wife was crying silently. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I was so lonely, but that's not an excuse. I became exactly what I condemned you for, someone who looked outside the marriage instead of working on it. The difference," I said, surprising myself, "is that you stopped before it went too far. I didn't." Marcus stood up. "My flight leaves in 4 hours. I wanted to clear the air before I left. Sarah, you're a remarkable woman, but you belong with your husband. And David, your wife never stopped loving you. She just lost herself for a while." After he left, my wife and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "I don't know if we can fix this." "Maybe we don't fix it," I said. "Maybe we just start over. Again. But this time, without trying to be perfect or trying to erase the past. Just see what happens." She looked around the room, at the renovated space that was supposed to be our fresh start. "Can I stay tonight?" "Not in the bedroom, just here. I want to help you finish the kitchen." I nodded. "There's a guest room upstairs. The bed's just a mattress on the floor, but that's fine." We worked on the kitchen until sunset, barely talking, just existing in the same space. It felt different than before, less desperate, less performative. When we ordered takeout and ate dinner on the living room floor, surrounded by paint cans and tools, I caught her genuinely laughing at something stupid I said about the cabinet hinges. It was the first real moment we'd had in months. I don't know what happens next. We're both seeing our therapist this week, separately and together. The emotional affair created new wounds, but maybe it also forced us to confront the fact that we'd been trying to rebuild something that was already broken instead of creating something new. For now, she's upstairs, and I'm down here writing this. Tomorrow, we'll keep working on the house. Maybe we'll keep working on us too, but without the pressure of having to succeed. Maybe that's enough for now. Update 8. It's been 2 months since Marcus left, and I thought we were finally on solid ground. The villa renovation was complete, my wife had been staying there more often, and we'd fallen into this comfortable rhythm of just existing together without the pressure. We were taking it day by day, rebuilding trust slowly. Some nights we'd talk until dawn, other nights we'd work in the garden in comfortable silence. It felt real for the first time in years. Last Friday, I was in the Capitol for a cabinet meeting when my phone buzzed with a text from my wife, "Emergency at the villa. Can you come home early?" My blood ran cold. I immediately called her, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times during the train ride home, each call adding to my panic. I arrived at the villa around 8 p.m. to find her car in the driveway alongside a black sedan I didn't recognize. The front door was unlocked, which immediately set off alarms. She's religious about locking doors. I walked in calling her name, and heard voices from the kitchen. What I found stopped me in my tracks. My wife was sitting at our newly installed kitchen island, red-eyed and clutching a tissue. Across from her sat a woman I'd never seen before, mid-40s, professionally dressed, with the kind of composure that screamed lawyer or investigator. "David," my wife said, her voice shaky, "this is Detective Walsh. She's been waiting for you." The woman stood and extended her hand. "Mr. Henderson, I'm investigating a fraud case that may involve your wife's business. I need to ask you both some questions." My mind raced. My wife's e-commerce business had been doing well enough that she'd been able to work remotely from the Capitol. What kind of fraud could she possibly be involved in? "I'm sorry, what kind of fraud?" I asked, sitting down beside my wife. Detective Walsh opened a folder. "We've been investigating a sophisticated money laundering operation using multiple small businesses as fronts. Your wife's company has been flagged for unusual transaction patterns over the past 6 months." My wife grabbed my hand. "David, I swear I don't know what she's talking about. Yes, business has been good, but I've been legitimate about everything. Mrs. Henderson, can you explain why your business received 17 payments of exactly $9,900 from overseas accounts in the past 4 months? Always just under the $10,000 reporting threshold?" The color drained from my wife's face. Those were bulk orders. Large quantity purchases from international clients. I have all the shipping records. We'd like to see those records. We'd also like to know about your recent trip to Prague. Our investigation shows you met with several individuals there who are now persons of interest in our case. My stomach dropped. Prague. Where she'd met Marcus. But this sounded like something else entirely. "I was at a business conference," my wife said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have all the documentation, including documentation of your meetings with Alexander Petrov and his associates." I'd never heard that name before, but my wife's reaction was immediate. She went completely still, her hand tightening on mine. "I don't know anyone by that name," she said carefully. Detective Walsh pulled out a photograph. "This is you, at the Grand Hotel Praha, having dinner with Mr. Petrov on March 15th. Our surveillance shows you met with him 3 times during your stay." My wife stared at the photo, and I could see her mind working. That was a potential client. He said he was interested in bulk purchasing. I thought it was legitimate business. Did this potential client ask you to set up specific payment processing? Did he suggest using particular overseas accounts? The silence stretched uncomfortably. My wife looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear, but also something else. Guilt, maybe, but not the kind I was used to. "I think," my wife said slowly, "I need to call a lawyer." Detective Walsh nodded. "That's your right. But I should tell you both, this investigation is moving quickly. We've already made arrests in 3 other countries. If your wife was an unknowing participant, cooperating now would be in her best interest." After Detective Walsh left, my wife and I sat in the kitchen in stunned silence. The same kitchen where we'd shared takeout 2 months ago, laughing about cabinet hinges. "Sarah," I said finally, "what really happened in Prague?" She took a shaky breath. "I met Marcus at the conference, yes. But I also met other people. This man, Alexander, he approached me after one of the sessions. He was charming, said he'd been following my business online, wanted to discuss a partnership. And? He took me to dinner. Expensive places, introduced me to his associates. Said he could help me expand internationally, that he had clients who would pay premium prices for quality products." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I was flattered, my little e-commerce business, suddenly interesting to these sophisticated international businessmen. "But you didn't tell me about him. Because I thought you'd worry. You were working so hard in the Capitol, we were just getting back on track. I wanted to handle it myself, maybe surprise you with how well the business was doing." "And the payments?" He said his clients preferred to pay in installments, that it was easier for their accounting. Everything seemed legitimate. I shipped products, they paid exactly what they owed. I never questioned why it was always the same amount. I felt sick. "Sarah, you realize what this looks like?" "I know how it looks. But I swear, I thought it was real business. I was being careful about everything, keeping records, paying taxes on the income, everything by the book. Except for not telling your husband about mysterious international business partners." She flinched. I know how bad this is, but David, after Marcus, after almost losing you again, I wanted to prove I could be successful on my own. I didn't want to need rescuing." The irony was crushing. We'd survived my alcoholism, my emotional unavailability, her emotional affair, and now this. If she was innocent, it was the worst possible timing and the most terrible luck. If she wasn't. "I need to ask you something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And I need you to tell me the truth. Is there anything else about Prague I should know? She looked at me for a long moment. There's something else. Something I didn't tell you about Marcus either. My heart sank. What? He introduced me to Alexander. Marcus knew him from his consulting work. He said Alexander was a legitimate businessman, that I should trust him. She started crying again. I think Marcus might have been involved in this somehow. Maybe he was supposed to get close to me, to set me up. The room spun. The man who'd flown here to nobly end the emotional affair, who'd given us that speech about fixing our marriage, had he been part of some elaborate scheme all along? Did you tell Detective Walsh about Marcus? Not yet. I was afraid. I was afraid you'd think I was lying to protect him. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden we designed together. 6 months ago, I'd been worried about mood stabilizers and sleeping in separate beds. Now my wife might be facing federal charges for money laundering. We need to call a lawyer, I said. Tonight. And you need to tell them everything, Marcus, Alexander, all of it. David, she said quietly, do you believe me? That I didn't know? I turned back to her. After everything we'd been through, after all the lies and half-truths and omissions, she was asking me to trust her one more time. I believe you, I said. But Sarah, even if you're innocent, this is going to destroy us. My career, the cabinet position, everything we've built. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. I'm so sorry. I seem to keep finding new ways to ruin our lives. As I held her while she cried, I couldn't help but think about the divorce papers I'd torn up over a year ago. Maybe we'd just been delaying the inevitable. Maybe some people are just meant to hurt each other, no matter how hard they try not to. The lawyer is coming tomorrow. Detective Walsh wants to interview us again on Tuesday. And somewhere in Berlin, Marcus is probably living his life, either completely innocent or laughing at how perfectly his plan worked. I don't know what happens next. But for the first time since this all started, I'm not sure I want to find out.